Hi everyone, and welcome to Board Wrap-Up for the month of July. Hope your summer is going well. The Ponca City Board of Education still meets during the summer, although school is not in session. This past week, the Ponca City Board of Education had a couple of very special things going on. First of all, their regular July board meeting, but before the board meeting, if you're not familiar, one of our Ponca City Board of Education members representing Ward number 2 or District 2 was taken off the Board of Education, so the board has spent the last several weeks looking for a replacement, and that was part of this month's Board of Education special meeting. I'll turn it over to Dr. Pennington and let you go through what happened at the special board meeting, Dr. Pennington.
Well, what happened, Phil, is we had three individuals that applied for the job and met the criteria. Living in the district, not having a relative within the second degree that worked for the school district. So we had three applicants. Bob Banta, who's a well-known individual here in Ponca City. If anybody's ever been to Backer Ford, or at least to Backer Ford since I lived in Ponca City, Bob's a mainstay there and very active in the community. Does a lot of work with the Opportunity Center, and is a really big supporter of Ponca City athletics and all of our activity programs, and a big OSU fan. So that's how I know Bob. I don't know him personally. Robin Riley, who is a retiree from Conoco and has been active in the Parks and Recreation area here in Ponca City, was one of the individuals that was on the park board when they made the decision to create the beach at Lake Ponca. And Jeff McKinnon, who is a young person here in Ponca City, young, he's in his late 20s, early 30s. Jeff taught here in Ponca City for, I think, 3 years at Liberty Elementary, and then this past year made a decision to leave education and go into the insurance business. And he works for Farmers Insurance and is in that process of building that business. And so those were our three applicants. The board interviewed those three individuals last night, and then they discussed the applicants in executive session, and in the regular meeting came out and made a decision. And Robin Riley has been appointed to serve on the board from now until February. He can, if he chooses, file for election in December, and if that's the case, then depending, of course, if he files and nobody else files, he'll become a board member and fill out the rest of Mr. Downs' term, which is 3 more years. Or he could decide not to file and not to run again. I mean, I think that you know, and again, I think that what happens with this, it gives us individual opportunity. First of all, without making a 5-year commitment, do I really want to do this? So I think that's, you know, one good thing about the process, and gives the community and the rest of the board a chance to see how this individual works with all of us. I can tell you that personally, and I told the three applicants last night, you know, I was really pleased, because you never know who's going to want to step into that kind of position. And I appreciate the three individuals putting their name out there. You know, it's always it's like applying for a job or anything else. You put yourself out there, and there's a chance that you may not be the person selected. And that's the case here. Kind of the interesting side note to all this is Bob and Robin are both graduates from Ponca City High School of the class of '67. So I thought that was unique. You know, of all the people that can apply, that you'd have two former classmates who would step up and do that. So we'll see what happens. Mr. Banta indicated last night that his intention was to run regardless of whether or not he was selected. So we'll see if he does that. Again, they were three really good candidates. I think they were three individuals that really care about Ponca City. They want to see, like we all do, this be a school system that works well, and that we're doing the best we can for kids. So I think that it was one of those great positions to be in, that whichever choice the board made, it was going to be the right choice.
School boards often get talked about for the wrong reasons, and I think it's a positive that I've seen open positions where nobody applied. You really had to go out, and to have three people. I knew who those three people were,
Right.
And when I heard the names, the first thing I thought of, and I'm sure you would agree, that no matter who you came up with, you're probably going to be in a winning situation.
Yeah, you know, the board was really in a tough spot last night, because you know, because they really liked all three of them. I mean, they really did. I mean, I think that they really liked all three of them. I can't tell you why they made the decision they made, because I really don't know. You know, it's one of the few times when I've sat there and the board's been faced with the decision. I was pretty glad I didn't have a vote. And you know, the truth is, I've been here for 8 years in this community, but I really didn't know any of the applicants. I kind of knew Jeff a little bit just because he taught in the system, but I didn't know him very well. So it was an interesting process. The first time I've ever done that. I've been doing this for 17 years now. That's the first time I've ever had a seat become vacant, where we had to appoint somebody for this process to work.
So, as opposed to a lot of your duties where you do have to make the final decision on a person that is in the school system,
Yeah.
This is one of those where you did not have a vote.
Nope, didn't have a vote, didn't have a recommendation. I got to sit there and listen. I mean, I asked a question in the interview process, but had the opportunity to listen to the board as they deliberated. And again, I think that it was a tough decision, and I think that they did. You know, I mean, the bottom line is my advice to them was that they couldn't go wrong. Mm-hmm. Whichever candidate they picked was going to be a good choice, regardless, whoever they picked was going to have to. Was going to have to run again. And that was a change that was made in state law probably about 10 years ago. Whenever somebody was appointed to a position, if more than half the term was left, that person would have to run for election at the next time a regular scheduled election was. I kind of think there's a part of me that thinks that's a good idea, and another part of me that says I'd like to appoint somebody. Know they're going to be on the board, know they're going to serve for the next 3 years so that we don't have to go through that process again. But that's just the way it is, and board elections have been interesting here the last couple of years, and this time we're going to have 2 seats on the February ballot, so we'll see if that interest continues or if we settle down to what typically has happened in most communities in Oklahoma, where if you have board members that are doing their job and doing it well, they're able to, if they want to continue, able to do that without opposition.
That's the interesting other part of this, and it's still 7 or 8 months away, but very rarely do you have two high-profile seats available on a school board. We have a 5-member board, so 2 of your 5 board positions are going to be up for election in February of 2013.
Yeah. And again, we'll see what happens. It's been interesting, and I think probably that I don't want to use the word controversy, but the interest that has surrounded the last 2 board elections probably prompted these 3 individuals maybe to step up, just because typically the last thing on anybody's mind is a school board position, so I think that because it's been some interest and there's been some discussion and been some chatter out in the community, I think it probably prompted these 3 individuals to step up who maybe in the past they wouldn't have. So again, we'll see. We're obviously interested we'll start working with Mr. Riley. He doesn't officially become a member until the next regular board meeting, but we'll try to get together with him as soon as we can and start trying to give him some information about the system. And I think one of the things that, like I said, I've done this for 17, 18 years now, and I think that the one thing that's consistent is that nobody really understands what it's like to be on the Board of Education until you're actually on the Board of Education. People have a lot of thoughts about what it's like to be on the board, or they have a lot of opinions about schools and how we operate. But the reality is that until you're actually in that process and see how the process works, you really can't understand it. I think it's my experience with most board members is they'll tell you that it's the most rewarding thing they've ever done, because they're able to look and see the things they've done that affect kids. But it's also very frustrating because it doesn't operate like any other organization. One of the comments that was made last night was that we needed to take we need to look at the board like you would look at a business. And you hear that a lot about schools and about government and everything else. But the reality is we're not a business. We don't function the way business does. We adopted a budget last month, and we don't even know what our revenue is. I mean, it is July the 10th, and we still don't have our state aid allocation from the state of Oklahoma, which is probably about 60% of our general fund budget. Now, does that make me nervous? Sure, because we have to make plans to operate school. We're hiring teachers now. We're making decisions about products we're going to purchase. We're doing all those things, and while we have an operational budget that the board's approved, we really don't know with certainty how much money we're going to have. And the other part of that is even when we know what our state aid allocation is going to be, and we know what we're supposed to get from the estimate of needs for local revenue, and we know what the federal government tells us they're going to send us, the reality is those numbers are just on paper. They change all the time. And we've been through that, the last 4 or 5 years in this state where we're going to give you X number of dollars. Oh, by the way, revenues aren't coming in. We're going to cut you right now. We're dealing with a situation right now with the federal government money. We have an allocation approved by a budget approved by Congress, which says this is how much title dollars that Ponca City Public Schools is going to receive for the 2012-2013 school year. But this time last year, we were having this big discussion in Washington about a budget agreement. And you may remember that the outline was we're going to bring these parties together. They're going to make an agreement. If they don't, then we're going to have these mandatory cuts in federal programs that are in the law. So I think the idea was we're going to put these cuts out here. The cuts are going to be so bad that will force the committee to come to some agreement to fix the budget situation. Well, as Congress has a tendency to do, they kicked the can down the road, and they didn't make a decision in last August. So now, if nothing happens between now and January, every program of the federal government is going to receive a cut, and it's a mandated cut. And that seems like a good idea. We're going to force the government to cut their budget. But what does that mean to us? Well, in our situation, it means we're projecting. We've been told that if nothing happens, that our budget will be cut somewhere between 7 and 9% in January for our federal dollars. Well, by the time we get to January, we're halfway through the school year. So you're going to retroactively apply a cut to us when we're already through half the school year. So it makes it difficult. So what we're going to do is we're just making the cut now. We're just going to go ahead and cut our federal programs 10%. If the cut comes, we've already made that, and we'll be able to get through the rest of the year. If it doesn't come, we'll reallocate that money, and principals will have to spend it the second semester. But the problem is those positions are staff positions. Those are jobs we won't be able to fill. It means classrooms will be larger. It means students won't get the assistance they need that we use that extra federal money for. The federal money we receive we get that because of the number of students we have that qualify for free and reduced lunch, students that are considered to be in poverty. And so we're hurting programs that help the children that need the help the most. And but that's our budget, and that's just the world we have to live in.
I was going to ask you what programs might be affected by this, but the way you're talking, it's more of a question of what program won't be affected by this.
Anything that's federal, so that's Title I, Title II, Title VII, special education. We already spend more on special education than the federal government gives us. And that's one of those ongoing sore points in that when special education was created in the 70s, the promise was that the federal government would provide 40% of the cost of those special education programs. Right now, they provide somewhere around 14 to 15% of the cost. So they're already not funding those programs at the level they promised, but they're going to come in and cut us anyway in that program. And that's a big expense for us. I mean, it's a big expense for us, especially because we're in a situation where our special education population continues to grow. We have more students in our system who need special ed services than have ever needed those services before. So what we should be receiving from the federal government is more money to meet the mandate they placed upon schools, not only in Oklahoma but across the country, but instead we're going to receive less monies. And you know, everybody that receives money from the federal government can have those same kind of discussions. But what's different about federal education dollars is the federal education provides a supporting role to public schools, and the focus of those dollars has always been for children in poverty or children with special needs, with the idea that their federal dollars will help level the playing field for those students. It will help them because traditionally, Oklahoma's a little different in the way we fund schools, but traditionally, if you look at most places across the country, there is a sharp difference between how much money is spent on the education for students in poverty and money that is spent on the education for students who live in affluent areas. Because of our funding formula in Oklahoma, that's not the same. We have the same amount of money whether you live in the most exclusive neighborhood in Tulsa or whether you live in the poorest part of the state. The state and local dollars are equalized. So we're a little different in that regard. There is a big discrepancy, though, in our state compared to what we spend on education, what other states spend. So the federal dollars are still important to us. So, you know, it's just it's a challenge. And the point in all that is that, you know, in most business situations, if you're a division of a major corporation, you know what your budget is. You know going in that you've got $1 million to spend this year, and with that $1 million, you know, you can hire your staff, and you know that for that physical year for your company, they're going to work for you. Now, some things may happen the next year, and you may end up cutting that budget or get a budget increase. But you know, we're always dealing with moving targets for numbers, and that's why we try to maintain a large fund balance. That's why we put money in the bank, because we have to be prepared for when all of a sudden something happens and causes us to take a drastic hit with budgets. And we've been kind of navigating that minefield for the last 2 or 3 years, and we've been able to maintain our fund balance, and we haven't had to cut any programs or any of those kinds of things. But again, with the federal dollars where they are, with the fact the state did not step up this year, and when they had an opportunity to increase funding for education, made a decision not to do that, with all those uncertainties, it just makes it, you know, I guess if you had any here, you'd lose it. But since I don't have any, I can't lose any more of it.
You had your regular board meeting in July, and take a little time here. Is there a subject or anything that you wanted to pass along that occurred during the regular board meeting that you'd like to talk about?
You know, no, it was just a very standard meeting. We encumbered a lot of money, which again we always do because it's in July that we encumber the dollars that we're going to spend during the school year. So we encumbered a lot of money, and you know, other than negotiating with our teachers, which we'll do later on this week, we've got a pretty good idea we'll have a pretty good idea of what our spending commitments are going to be as we go throughout the school year. But you know, usually July is a very short meeting, and really that's kind of the way we were last night. The other thing that we did talk about is that we're going to have a virtual school again this year. It's been about 3 years ago. We actually had a contract with a company called Kaplan to provide virtual courses for our students. So that was a student who maybe lived in the Ponca City area, but for whatever reason, they didn't want to go to the high school. they could enroll in the Kaplan Virtual School. And then we paid Kaplan a fee for the courses that those students took. We ended up ending that contract because we could not guarantee Kaplan 50. They wanted 50 kids, and we couldn't guarantee them there were 50 students who were going to take a full course load of the courses they offered. This past session in the legislature, there were some law changes made that basically require us to offer a virtual program, and there's some, you know, again, the way I read the law, it says that you have to offer courses to students. If you don't offer the course, there's very few things that we don't offer kids. But we've decided to go ahead because, I mean, I think it's something we need to do. We need to allow our students to take virtual courses. Someday I'd like to require that every student take at least one virtual course, because I think that it's not only going to be the way that they take some of their college hours, they can take graduate hours that way. I think it helps them be better prepared to work in that kind of environment. But we're going to use the E2020 program we have, which is an online instructional program. We're going to use that to kind of help us put together a virtual program. And so basically we're going to have 3 options for students. They can take a full-time virtual course load. They can take 6 courses online and never step into the high school building. They can take 3 courses online and go to the Career Tech for half a day if they choose to do that. Or they can take some courses online and come to the high school if they want to do that. Really giving students a greater option to kind of modify their schedule and put things together the way they'd like to. These are our students who live within our district boundaries, so when they do these kinds of things, they're eligible to participate in our extracurricular activities if they choose to do that. Is it going to be perfect right out of the box? No. We obviously need to do some work, but you know, I can see a day when we'll, in addition to having teachers who are on our faculty who teach traditional courses, that we have some staff members who either part of their day or their entire day is spent just in a virtual environment. So we're headed that way. We'll see how it works. I don't know really how much demand we'll have. You know, every year we'll have maybe 5 to 10 students who have enrolled in one of the virtual schools that exist across the state of Oklahoma. They get a transfer and they do that. Of course, obviously we don't know how successful those students have been. We know that over half of those students will come back to us because the virtual environment was not what they anticipated it would be. You know, I think that for most kids, the virtual environment is a harder environment because you have to be self-motivated. You have to get online. You have to do the assignments. You don't have a teacher that is guiding you through that process all the way. And while most of us maybe perceive ourselves as self-starters, I think for most of us the fact that people expect us to be in a certain place at a certain time gets us to that place at that time to go to work every day. So, and in a lot of ways, school is kind of that way. So anyway, we're going to see how it works. I think it's one of those things that will start small and will grow. It's been a very controversial issue in Oklahoma, exactly how virtual schools work. There's a lot of different vendors out there. One of the major players in this is a company that started in Ponca City, Advanced Academics, and I believe they have a new name now, but they've been in the field for quite a while, and so we'll see what happens.
A number of months till school starts. So here we are. We just seem like school ended,
right?
And the new school year's 29 days away. Anything happen over the summer that would make you think we're not going to have everything ready?
Well, you know, you're always concerned this time of year because of your construction projects. Anybody that's driven by West Middle School knows that at least as of this morning, we still have huge piles of concrete and we don't have any grass planted, and you can still see constructions going on. Now, if you go inside the building, what you'll see is we're at that stage of construction. We don't have a lot of people in there working, so we're doing a lot of finish work. They're starting to clean up the inside of West. They're going to start that today. They continue to tell me that we'll be ready for the first day of school, we'll be ready for enrollment, that there may be some touch-up things that need to be done, but for the most part we're going to be done. And I'll tell you, West has really gotten a huge makeover. I mean, anybody that has not been inside that building in a long time will be stunned when they go in at the first day And of course, obviously, we have new offices out front, but the things we've done to the kind of open up the upstairs of the building. We've done a lot of renovation in the PE facilities over there. So it really got a nice interior facelift to that facility, and I think it'll be more accommodating, better, and it'll be a good work environment for our staff. But we've been working inside on Liberty, Trout, and Woodlands, and in those buildings, what people will see when school starts. Liberty's got the biggest renovation in addition to going in and basically gutting the restrooms in those three buildings and rebuilding those. We've got new hallways, flooring in Liberty, Trout, and Woodlands, but in Liberty we also put new flooring in the classrooms. So we've done a major renovation of Liberty. We have some more things to do. You know, we've continued over the last several years to try to renovate those buildings and improve them without having to shut them down, which puts a lot of pressure on in the summer to do that. But so that's what we've been doing, and obviously we're going to continue to do that work. And as long as the people of this community pass bond issues that allow us to do that, we'll continue to work on our facilities and make them the best they can be for the kids that go to school here. And then, of course, the football field. If you drive down Fifth Avenue, you know we've been looking at gravel for about 3 weeks, and we're anxiously awaiting the new turf to go down. Just in case somebody wonders what's been the delay, well, we had to order some more gravel. When we took the old surface off, we realized that we'd I don't know how you lose gravel, but we'd lost some of the gravel we put in there 8 years ago, and we needed to do some things to level the field, which meant we had to bring in I don't know how many more tons of gravel to do that. And so we're in the process of doing that. That's all been done, and I think last night they were still leveling the field, trying to get that level. You know, that's pretty important that the field be level. Once they get that done, they'll come in and they'll put the surface back on, and we'll be ready to go. And we'll see a nice, new, beautiful field out there. And, you know, I thought the other field was in good shape. I mean, I really did. But I think we're going to really, when we see the new field out there and we walk on it the first time, we're going to realize how much wear and tear had happened to the other field. So we're excited about it. I think it's a great project that we're doing, and we're using building fund money to do that. Those are dollars that we generate each year through local property taxes, and so we're using that money for that, and to do a couple other projects. We've resurfaced some areas at Liberty and Trout